Hey, beer lovers, this is Shane with I Love Virginia Beer podcast, your home for all the behind-the-scenes information and videos on Virginia's wonderful world of craft breweries and festivals. Today on the show, we have Dave Baum, founder of Billsburg's brewery here in Jamestown, Virginia, close to Williamsburg.
Right.
Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us. This is a wonderful opportunity.
Appreciate it. So you actually have kind of an interesting path to being a brewer. So you got, if I understand correctly, about 10 years ago or so, you got a very large home brewing thing.
Homebrew kit?
For Christmas.
Yep.
And that's how you started down this path.
Turned down the path, homebrew kit for Christmas from the wife. It was a wonderful Christmas. Started exploring in that back in the day. It was at a time where you couldn't get things like New Belgium on the East Coast. So it was just a hobby that eventually morphed into commercial grade equipment that was in the garage. Eventually it became a battle for my wife and I to have square footage in the garage. And the byproduct of all of that became this brewery itself.
Okay, so you really got into it enough that you wanted to open it up, an actual brewery.
It was, and it wasn't anything that we planned on day one, but it was enough of a love at that time that the craft, the hobby became the fun part. And every day when you got home from work, you were thinking, how am I going to make the next batch of beer?
That's awesome.
Yeah, got totally hooked into it.
So when you're gonna, did you ask for it for Christmas or was this just a surprise?
I did. I asked for it for Christmas. I had a good friend of mine in town that was making beer himself. Had a brother-in-law in Texas that was making beer. Asked my wife if she would just try to figure out what to do for Christmas that year, and this was the work of what she put together underneath the Christmas tree.
Awesome. So as you went from being a casual home brewer that started out 10 years ago, what took the turn into to open up something serious like a brewery?
I think what happened was, so we're there. We got the little 5-gallon pot on the stove, and we're making it in the house. Eventually, the hobby becomes one of those hobbies where you can just keep adding more money to it, right? It's
sure.
It can grow.
It doesn't get cheaper.
No, it doesn't. But the hobby eventually led into a half-barrel commercial grade system in the garage, and at that point, the beer that I was making, handing out to everybody, eventually somebody smart enough said, "What do we do for the next level? How do we do that?" And 4 or 5 years later, Billsburg opens up. So
that's so cool. Now you guys have one of the coolest spots. You can't see it from the view now, but you're right on the water.
Yeah.
You built a brand new brew house.
Yep.
And then I understand you renovated this building, which is your current tap room.
Correct.
How did you pick here?
We got lucky. We got lucky. So it took us about 4 years to put together a business plan. So that was the next step. In that business plan, we started talking to our local county, trying to figure out where in this area could we do it. We knew at that point we wanted to be different, so the goal for us was to build what we called a destination brewery, place for people to come and make that the reason for coming out. So we knew location was critical. Once we had figured out this business plan, we put it on the offices of our county. They started helping us find different pieces of property that fit in the tourism destination enterprise zone. And while we were talking about building something across the street, this piece of property opened up. So we had everything at right time, right place, right everything, and that made it easy for them to say, what if you guys move in right here?
Right.
So we leased this property. We partnered with our local government to build this brew house building, the brand new one, and then partnered with the state to get some tourism dollars through some economic growth opportunities.
Oh, great.
And suddenly this thing happened within about 9 months.
You guys are just blocks from the Williamsburg or the Jamestown settlement.
Yeah, exactly.
So as people are coming in for tourism, I imagine you see quite a few come over at the end of the day and sit down and have a beer.
Yeah, so what's cool about this is it's not just the settlement that's here. Across the marina here that we're in, we have the Jamestown Island. We also have the Colonial Parkway. We have the Jamestown settlement itself, the museum aspect of it all. Across the street, we have the Jamestown Beach Event Park. We have the Capitol Trail. Mile marker 0 is here. So anybody taking the Capitol Trail up to Richmond and back, this is the beginning of it all. We also have the Jamestown, Scotland Ferry, which is the road in between us and the beach event park. So what we looked at was a business plan that suddenly hit international tourism, regional tourism, local tourism, and kind of just turned this into a hotspot for the neighborhoods around us.
Yeah. What is it like to be doing business in a spot that is so deeply enriched in American history?
It's awesome, but it also is something that you want to curtail your marketing towards.
Sure.
Right. So we knew that it had a potential to be a problem as much as it was going to be what it was that set us apart from everybody else. So we didn't want to be tied into a colonial Virginia sort of theme.
Right.
So we had to build our own brand, our own identity. But really, it's helped us because when you look around here, there is so much history that what I've been describing to everybody that works in this area is I look at it as a cul-de-sac of businesses. And when you think of your neighboring businesses and who you can partner with, we got some pretty awesome neighbors.
Yeah. So, speaking of branding, Billsburg seems to me to be a takeoff of William, as Bill is a short for William.
Right.
I understand your father came up with that name.
He did. When I moved to Williamsburg back in 2002, he and I would have a weekly phone call. We would conference in my brother. It was a big family night sort of thing on a regular basis. But when I moved here, he's the one that said, "Oh, so you finally moved to Billsburg," and that somehow stuck. He passed away last June, but when we were going through all of his rooms and whatnot, we saw pieces of paper where he actually wrote Billsburg down as part of our address because he was in the mortgage business. So yeah, it was.
Never sent you any mail with Billsburg written on it?
Never had it yet, not yet.
And so that just became the name for the brewery, and since you're close to Colonial Williamsburg and all of that works.
It fit in well, yeah, exactly.
And you said you're not native of here.
I am Southern Virginia, between Virginia Beach, Richmond, Blacksburg for a little while. Ultimately moved down here in 2002, so I've been here for 15 years.
And what brought you this way?
At the time, work, employment, everything else. So I was working at the time for a local nonprofit. Left there to get into marketing and director of e-commerce for a retailer. Left the corporate world for this wonderful opportunity. Yeah.
You're doing this full time now?
Doing this full time, 100%.
Are you doing the brewing, or do you have a head brewer that's doing stuff for you?
Hired a head brewer. Smartest thing that we could have done, right? So that homebrew. That homebrew level just does not scale up as much as one thinks. So the first person we hired, he's actually worked for the company longer than I have. But his name is Austin Shawinski. He's a fabulous brewer. He's making all the beers out here.
So as you've grown from 10 years ago or so, doing it in your garage, to now in this beautiful facility, what has been your biggest surprises and your biggest challenges as you've come to your road to success?
I think that the surprises come, right? So when we started, right, and any homebrewer will tell you this, right? The goal is to enjoy beer while you're making a batch of beer, right? Especially that first batch of beer, right? You're almost hoping that you finish the process before you get too drunk, and then you got to do the cleanup the next day, right? And so what started off as that, and we'd have parties on a Friday night where we'd make a batch of beer, and somebody would be stirring the pot and all that, and it was very simple, elementary extract brewing way back then. And then that parlayed into doing things in the garage and spending all Saturday doing it. And then when you get to this level, it really is more of a business. So for us, we had to treat it seriously as a business. That's why we brought in a brewmaster. The surprise for us really was to be a brewery now. I think it's important, especially for us as a destination brewery, to constantly be planning events.
Sure.
So the one thing I haven't done since we opened up is actually brew a batch of beer. I miss that. Those days are far and few between, but I am constantly planning the next event, the next event, and the next event.
What have been some of your favorite events?
We've had a great time. Some of the favorite ones, and we got some really cool ones coming up here. Favorite ones was the marketing guy in me, the background of marketing, said that Easter and April Fool's Day were all on the same day. So that was a cool thing to plan when you're sitting here, right? So we're on 10 acres. We hosted our first 5K race. It was the Bunny Hops race with an Easter egg hunt for the kids. So given our location, given everything that we have, we're very family friendly, but we put together a 5K race for the adults, an Easter egg hunt for the kids, All of the adults had a chance to have beer while the kids were looking for the Easter eggs. That was a whole lot of fun. Recently, we have tied back into the community. We were able to host the 60th anniversary alumni of the Colonial Williamsburg Fife and Drum out here. So they had their alumni picnic out here with an impromptu jam session.
Oh,
a whole lot of fun. Yeah. So when you start realizing things that the city builds its life around, you start saying, okay, we can be a part of that. And I think when we opened up, that was what was ultimately cool. We wanted to make good, solid beer, but falling into the fabric of this community really was what we thought was going to allow us to sustain ourselves.
That's awesome. Anything really exciting coming up?
Yeah, so coming up, and part of us is building an identity that says we want to give back. We're doing a couple of things here that are really awesome. Back to us being on the Capitol Trail, we're hosting a launch party and a fundraiser for a program called Cycling Without Age. It's actually this Tuesday night. So concept is elderlies can't get around the town. They can be piloted around on a cycle with this carriage in front of it. Working with the community, the county has agreed, given that we're so close to Parks and Rec within the community, that they're going to host the bicycle downstairs. And they're going to let the pilots come Monday through Friday once they get this program launched. And they're going to have 3 different nursing homes carry the elderly out here and shuttle them, or whether it's around the Jamestown Island or whether it's up and down the Capitol Trail. But it's truly a community partnership, and we get the opportunity just for this location to say we're going to host the launch party for that and fundraiser.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really
so
cool.
That
What day is
one's
that?
June 12th.
June 12th.
So
okay.
this coming week. Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
So that's coming up. The other thing that really hit us was across the Colonial Parkway, the island, they recently, in the last couple of years, unearthed America's first brewery. So as they prepare for 1609, or the 1619 celebration, it's the 400th anniversary of a few key things that happened for the settlers here. In that, what they realized they found was active yeast growing in that brew house that they're currently digging out. So they, being our neighbors, they've kind of talked with us, and we're working with them to say, how can we bring this all together in the next year's celebration?
That was right around here?
Yeah, so the tree's right over there. You can see it right from our tap room. Jamestown Island is right there, and that's where they found what they are now calling America's first brew house. Yeah.
Wow. It's a rich area for beer.
It's exactly right. It all started here, and they've been fortunate enough to work with us and just say, how can we partner together to help celebrate some of these things?
That's awesome. Talk to me a little bit about your beers. What do you think is your signature beer, and what makes your beer unique?
Yeah. So it's we have 3 beers that we chose. We were accidentally quoted before we opened up as I was accidentally quoted as saying, we're going to make a lot of authentic German lagers. It was great. So the media was fantastic with that. We hired our brewmaster, Austin, and he held up the newspaper to me and looked at me and said, Dave, I don't always make German lagers. And this was months before we opened up. But we have now become known for making a lot of German lagers. Okay. We have a good rotation of IPAs. Our number 1 beer right now, probably data-wise, is our IPA. It's an all Citra hopped IPA.
That's what I'm
It's called
right?
Flyaway. You're not. No, so that's a one-off IPA.
That's a one-off, okay.
So Flyaway is our number 1 seller. We also make an export lager that is moving pretty quickly, delicious. You're drinking a beer that we actually made for the Funhouse Fest.
Okay.
So Bruce Hornsby's music festival down here in a couple of weeks. You're making the beer that we made for the VIP section.
It's delicious,
Yeah,
by the way.
thank you. Yeah. So other than that, no, we're making stouts. We're making pretty much everything under the rainbow except for the fruity beers and the stout, or the fruity beers and the sour beers.
Okay.
Right, we are not a sour house, but
Fair.
we're hitting our everything right now in stride. But
What's your favorite?
my favorite, James City.
Yeah.
So this beer right here, James City Export Lager, is my favorite. It's an export lager. It's about 6%, true Dortmund style lager. My favorite is one that I've been making for like 5 years now. Flyaway is another one of my favorite beers. It's the all Citra hopped IPA that everybody loves.
Awesome.
Yeah.
sorry, I'm going to start over. Where can our listeners find your beer? Is it exclusively here in the tap house, or do you guys have a distribution system?
So we are, as of 3 weeks ago, just into distribution right now.
Great.
We are mostly in our tap room, but we are in about 15 different restaurants in the historic Triangle area. So we partnered with Imprice as our distributor in this area, and really our goal is to say, let's be hyper local, let's stick to this area, and really just give everybody a reason to enjoy coming to Williamsburg.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you can't see it on the podcast now, but you'll see it in some of it. It's a beautiful area. It's worth coming down here to see for a delicious beer. Where do you want to see? Where do you want to see your brewery in, say, 5 years from now? What's your future?
You know, it's a tough question. 5 years from now, I want to see this be the secured home base for us, right? We have a long-term lease for this location. We have a chance to grow it out. We are so new that this is our first summer of being open. We opened up in October of 2017. Have no idea what the capacity of this venue is. So as we explore that, then we can start figuring out what are the next steps.
You're just getting ready for tourism season.
We are, right?
Yeah. We'll see. I'll talk to you in 6 more months.
We'll
see what you say.
Right.
What do you think, as far as things we haven't already talked about? What is it, if somebody were to ask you, what do you want them to know about Billsburg Brewery?
What I want them to know is it truly is a destination brewery. What the surprise has been is how tight-knit we've become with the community and the people that live around us. So it's more than just tourism. It's about the locals, and it's about building a venue similar to Outpost style, where we have 10 acres. You can walk around with a beer in your hand. You can be comfortable. You can bring the kids. You can bring the dogs. There is no family shaming in this environment because what we have built and the opportunity that we've had really is the draw. The beers are, in my opinion, fantastic. I'm biased, but the location seems to be fitting well with the community.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dave Baum, founder of Billsburg Brewery here in historic Jamestown, Virginia, just out of Williamsburg. Come down, take a look, have a beer, enjoy the weather. Thank you very much for having us, or for having
Awesome.
me here at your brewery.
Yeah, thank you.
And don't forget to head to ilovevirginiabeer.com, where we have t-shirts and hats with bottle openers in the bill, as well as following us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much.